And I'm recording on this end, Dr. Lamb.
All righty.
We still have about 3 minutes according to my time. Dr. Lamb, I don't think I shared with you when we talked the other day. I had written, you're familiar with the Kate B. Reynolds Foundation in North Carolina. Right after I came on board with Communities in Schools, I tackled a major grant, writing a grant with co-authoring it. But anyway, last week I got a nice letter. I communicated with them yesterday via Zoom. But anyway, for the next 2 years, I have secured a grant for $330,000.
Wow.
It's going to help tremendously with some of the things that we were doing. But the good thing about this group is that they give you the grant, $300,000, and then for the next 2 years, I get $15,000 a year just to use for overhead and whatever I need to use it for. I don't have to take it out of the grant.
Well, that's certainly coincidental, because I was going to ask you to borrow a little money.
Yeah,
so
well,
I'm glad you got some.
I tell you what, dealing with what we're dealing with, that was a nice shot in the arm to be able to secure some funds for the next.
Do you have any parameters on how you're going to use it? Can you use it on technology?
No, well, no, we have Robinson County has been a part of a study for the last 2 years, and it's dealing with the resiliency of children based on low poverty, and then areas that have been hit with major disasters. And we were majorly hit with the 2 hurricanes and things. So we were, and by the way, Dr. Hamilton, is in New Hanover County as well. This resiliency coalition has worked in your county as well. I don't know if you're familiar.
Correct.
With it.
Yes.
But anyway, it's ending. The work that they're doing is ending, but they haven't completed the work that they need to do. Is one of those things that you put all this work into it, the program ends, and then it sits on the shelf and it dies and goes away, and all the work you've done becomes almost in vain. Well, I saw what was going to happen, so I wrote the grant to be able to continue what they're doing, but to begin implementation in the hardest hit area of our county, which is the South Lumberton area, where whole area, communities, a school was completely destroyed there and everything. So I will be able to hire a full-time person that will become a champion for that area, and we will be able to take all the work that has been done with the coalition and begin implementing it into a section of our county. So that's
great.
That's where, and it'll umbrella under my leadership with Communities in Schools. So I'm excited about it.
It'll be nice. That'll be good. All right. Well, Dr. Stedman, kick us off. I see our time is here.
Yeah, well, it's first of all, I want to just say welcome again to the MELS add-on licensure program, and we are just tickled pink that you chose Gardner-Webb to continue your studies. I'm going to all of your staff are here tonight. Dr. Hamilton, have you seen Dr. Crawford? He is your coach. With Dr. Crawford, he's supposed to chime in. He may not be here yet, but
he's right here.
Okay. Hey, Dr. Crawford. Dr. Crawford is your coach. Dr. Crawford will be a part of our discussion tonight. Dr. Revis and then myself, along with Dr. Lamb, we are the staff for the add-on licensure this semester, and we just thank you for being here. Tonight and the next 3 Thursday nights, we will come on board and we will fully acclimate you to basically every aspect of this program. And then after 4 weeks, we begin backing off. But you won't have to do this forever, where you're coming on board, 2 and 3 times a week. But we just find it necessary to do it at the beginning of the program for you to find the success that we know that you need. So with that in mind, I am going to we're going to follow the agenda as you see on the screen, and you have this under week 1 in your Blackboard shell as well. But Dr. Lamb, I think your name is the first one on the list.
Yep. And so I'll go ahead and get started with the clinical coach process. Please remember that each of your class section, 6-hour sections, has a paired 2-hour clinical section with it. We don't use that clinical 698 shell. We use a shell that says clinical internship with your coach's name on it. I will put you in that shell, and that's how you will communicate with that shell. Will show up under my courses, and it will say Mel's clinical internship, either Stedman, Revis, Hamilton, or Crawford. And I think, and you will have that shell, and that's where you will work. It has many of the same functions as your regular class shell. And the reason why we use a different shell for your work is simply because it's a repository. It doesn't go away. It stays with you the whole time that you're here. We have your shell, have that work in that shell, so we can go back and retrieve it if needed. If you lose something, if I had a nickel for every time somebody's school computer has gone down and they've lost their work, I'd be wealthy. I could retire. And so that's first point tonight is I want to remind you, it's the best practice to use your own equipment rather than your school equipment. They block email, they block large delivery of large documents. They get turned in, the hard drives get corrupted. If I were you, I would use my own personal laptop, understanding that Apple products are not compatible with anything that we use. iPads, Macintoshes, those things. I think you might be able to get away with the Macintosh, but I would not guarantee that. But I would invest $300 at Best Buy in my own laptop if you don't have one. Again, pads and tablets, you will not get all the functions of Blackboard, and they are not compatible with Taskstream either. So just as a precautionary tale. So the clinical coach process, very simply, you have a clinical coach one that should have been contacting you this week about a virtual visit with you and your principal to assure that you are in fact at a school and that you have the opportunity to complete your clinical hours there. They'll go over your clinical handbook with you and your supervisor. When they get through that meeting, they will be through with you in terms of this semester. And now, if you need another virtual meeting, if your clinical hours aren't going well this semester or any of the other semesters that you're in the program, that is the person we will either have send out to your school or do a virtual visit with you, because those folks are assigned geographically. So if you happen to be in the far western North Carolina area, then Dr. Revis may in fact be your clinical coach one, and she will be the person making the virtual visit with you. Once you get through with your clinical coach one in the next couple of weeks, again, they will be on standby for you, but they will not work with you on your work. Your clinical coach two is assigned with your class, and as Dr. Stedman said, the entire faculty of 601 add-on is here tonight. So if you're in Dr. Stedman's class, Dr. Revis is your clinical coach, vice versa. And if you're in Dr. Hamilton's class, then Dr. Crawford would be your coach, and that works vice versa as well. So please understand, you have a person now who is going to not only instruct you and work with you in your class, but you have a person on the side who's going to work with you most specifically on your Taskstream portfolio evidences and artifacts. Now, those evidences and artifacts are completed in your class, and they're only exported to Taskstream at the end. We do not work in Taskstream. We simply put work into Taskstream once it's completed. Both evidences, the 6 evidence narratives that you will be doing, the AAPSL, APTEL, OMA, SKIP, CAP, and PSYOP, but also you will have a competency folio there for your artifacts, things that you generate from the work that you do. And I'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about Taskstream. So those are your clinical coach 1 and 2 definitions. You will also have a Taskstream evaluator. Now, this is double blind, and what that means is you don't know who they are, they don't know who you are. They do not coach or teach or visit you. They are state-trained evaluators who will evaluate your work on the state rubric once it goes in. And as I said, we do not work in Taskstream. We only put our work there for grading. And so we don't put it in hoping that it passes. Hope is not a plan. We work that work in Blackboard and through the coaching system until we're quite sure that it's going to pass when it goes. We will not let you put work in a collection of random pieces of work and put it in there and just hope that they'll figure out what you've got. That's not how the system works. They will send work back for revision one time, and your coach will help you with that. But after that, not so much. So it needs to be correct, proficient, or accomplished when it goes. We know what the grading rubrics are. You know what the grading rubrics are. We've posted those along with the tasks and the prompts. And if they don't meet those rubrics, they will send them back. And so please remember, we work in Blackboard. The Taskstream is a repository for the portfolio that goes to the state eventually and to our accreditors. So please remember, all your work in Blackboard, Taskstream later on. To that end, on Tuesday, 2 weeks from today, on the 28th, I will be doing your Taskstream training session where I will teach you all about your Taskstream DRF portfolio that I've already set up for you that has everything that goes in it. And then I'll also that night teach you how to create your own competency folio for your artifacts so that you can own that yourself and use it to impress employers or to get renewal credit for your digital learning competencies. So that is my opening salvo for the evening. We'll move on down the agenda.
Dr. Lamb, remind them not to submit incomplete work. Make sure that always their assignments are complete. We don't look at half assignments.
Okay.
So,
and so I see that I'm next on the agenda. Yeah, that's a good point, Dr. Stedman, as we talk about how do my weekly Zoom classes work. Every week you have a Zoom class on Tuesday night, and then you have a coaching session for the first 4 weeks, and then pretty much every other week or, sporadically the rest of the semester. But so those sessions will be live. They're recorded, they're posted. You do best when you attend live, but again, they're the first 4 weeks and then every other week after that. But I do want to remind you, when you post a task, when you read the direction for the task, it has multiple parts in that task. For example, your first one is researching a PLC, selecting a PLC, and running your first PLC meeting. Do not put the first part where you research a PLC and ask for comments back. Do not do that. Do all 3 parts and then submit for comments to your coach or to your instructor. They'll give you the directions to do that. We do not grade or give feedback on partial tasks. You have to complete the entire task, and then we start working with you to get it better. We don't have the time, or you don't have the time with 2 evidences due this semester to do pieces and parts and send them in. Don't wear out the help. They will be glad to get back to you quickly and turn that work over. But as many students as they have, they can't handle the same piece of work 7 or 8 times. 2 or 3 is enough. So make sure when you do AAPSL Task 1, and it has 3 different sections in it, all 3 sections must be completed before you put it in for comments. Don't just put part of it in and hope that, and then, they're not going to write it for you. This is postgraduate, postmaster's work. You should be able to follow the directions in order to get all 3 pieces in and get started. So I think that's enough on that. Attendance, again, as I said, these classes are asynchronous. You're not required to attend live. You do better if you do, though. I would encourage you to attend live, but you do need to watch. You are required to watch the video from each week's session. So that is the attendance policy.
Remind them about we're required on Mondays to take attendance, and that is dependent upon whether they have submitted the work on schedule.
That is correct. You need to watch your video and submit your work by Sunday night, because on Monday they're going to take attendance whether you participated that week or not. You have to participate in 75% of the weeks in order to get your grade. That's anywhere. Now, that doesn't mean you have to come live that week, but you have to keep up. It means two things. It means, number one, you've watched that video if you didn't attend live, and number two, you've turned your work in by Sunday night at 9 o'clock. That's due that week. And then on Monday morning, when they take attendance, if you didn't turn any work in that week and you didn't watch the video or you didn't attend live, then you didn't attend that week. So there's 16 weeks. If you don't attend at least 12, if you don't get your work in on time and attend at least 12 sessions, you will fail at the end of the semester, not based on your work, but based on you didn't attend enough to get credit for your work. The Gardner-Webb graduate school rule is 75% attendance. So somebody has asked a question. All I have is a Mac. I would try the Mac. If you've got a Macintosh that can use Chrome, Mozilla, or Internet Explorer, or the new Microsoft Edge, which replaces Internet Explorer. If you have a computer that runs one of those three operating systems, a Mac, I would try it first. If it doesn't work, or if you don't have complete compatibility and you have to buy a laptop, you need a Microsoft-based Intel machine, probably an i3 processor that runs at least 2.1 megahertz and has at least 4 megabytes of RAM, preferably 8. And that's pretty much it. It doesn't have to be an i7 Wizard machine that costs $2,000. Those $300 machines, as long as it's an Intel processor that runs at least 2.1 megahertz as the base speed. Now, if it runs less than that, you're going to have trouble in both Taskstream and Blackboard, because it'll sit and grind too long. And when you buy one, that's the thing always to look at, is the processor speed. 2.1 megahertz is the minimum that you should have on your laptop or on your desktop.
And Dr. Land, sometimes we've had problems in the past when they had a MacBook, and when they submitted work to us, it didn't come to us correctly, and it was not formatted properly, and it looked wrong on our end. It looked right on their end, but it was wrong on our end because it was not compatible with what we were using.
Yeah, and it's not our decision. Everything has to go in eventually to Taskstream, and it has to be in a certain format in Word documents. And they don't support anything Apple or Macintosh or iPad. And so if we let you do it one way, we're going to have to go back and change it all at the end anyway, which is an ordeal. We have done that in the past. We have stopped doing that. We can't get those right. We have to have what will eventually be compatible with Blackboard and Taskstream.
And that
Word
is
and Office programs. Yes. They upload easily. That is all that, like Notepad and things like that on some of these that won't work with those either. Those won't open, even if you can upload them in Taskstream. They will not download. So it must be a Word document or a PDF that goes to Blackboard, right, or to Taskstream. You can use PDFs. PDFs or Word documents are all that will work. Nothing else. None of the other processors, notepads, none of that will work. It is not compatible. And so Google Docs, I would avoid the use of Google Docs because those have to be opened inside of the shell, and that won't work with Blackboard, with Taskstream. It'll work with Blackboard, but it won't work with Taskstream. I'll tell you now, Google Docs will not open in Taskstream. It sees that as a virus and blocks them from opening. So try to avoid using Google Docs if you can, unless you convert it over to a Word document.
And Dr. Lamb, sometimes
compatible with Taskstream.
Google Docs requires the person receiving it to have permission to open it up. Sometimes it really slows down the process when
Yes, and those permissions, and they won't go, and Taskstream won't accept those permissions, by the way.
Yeah.
So Taskstream is out for Google Docs. Blackboard, it's just an extra step. It's aggravating, but you're going to have to convert them before you go to Taskstream anyway. So I would not write my evidences in Google Docs because you're just going to have to do it twice.
Right.
These are good questions. These are things that if we learn right from the very beginning, then we don't have problems later on with things not downloading, uploading, can't get them graded. The way Taskstream works is when the assessor goes in to evaluate your work, they have a scoring rubric on the right that has all the things it's supposed to be in it, and it has your document on the left, and it has to pop up and open the screen, and it has to split so that they can view your document while they're viewing the rubric at the same time. As you could understand, Google Docs won't do that. It won't allow that to happen, and so it won't even, you can't even download them to assess them. And that's why only PDFs and Word, many of these other word processors do not have the functionality. And so the assessor can't open your document to grade it. That tends to make them angry, and they fire off ugly emails to me. And then I fire off ugly emails to whoever's on the other end. You know, kind of like the kick the dog syndrome. Fella gets yelled at work, and he goes home, yells at his wife, and she yells at the kid. Kid's got nobody to yell at, so he kicks the dog. I don't intend to be the dog in this scenario, so I just pass it on. So I'll just tell you right now, don't poke the bear. Don't aggravate your assessor. Make them be your, even though you'll never know who they are or never meet them, they should be your best friend in the world. Make everything that you can easy as you can on them. Question, I have a Mac. Will it work as long as I'm using Microsoft Word? Yes, as long as you've got Word on that. Now, it may not work for Blackboard to open up the Blackboard shell, and it certainly won't work with Taskstream. But you can write your evidences on it, but you may have trouble on that Mac opening up Blackboard and getting all the functions. One of the things we found with people who use Macs, when they go into Blackboard, it opens up, but when they go to open a document, it won't open the document. We've already had that happen already this semester. And so I had to ask, what kind of machine are you using? Well, I'm using the Mac. Well, Blackboard again is not compatible with anything that's Apple. And so even though you may be able to open Blackboard, usually you can't open documents if you're on a Mac. So I would try that out before I made my decision. And if you can get Blackboard to work and it will open up, go into the Blackboard shell, click on any particular link, make sure it'll open links to the internet, make sure it'll open documents, PDF, Word documents, make sure it'll open PowerPoints. And if it'll do those things, you're good to go. You're good to go on that.
And most schools have HP sitting around in the media center somewhere that you could possibly check out, and they work beautifully with this program.
Yeah, just, again, make sure that right now, before we get too deeply in this, make sure whatever you're using has the functionality to open documents, write documents, get into Blackboard, open all functions in Blackboard. Make sure it will do all of those things. We have some people who they do that, and then they go to a school computer to upload, because you don't use Taskstream very often, to upload their document using the Taskstream. So if the only thing is it's not compatible with Taskstream, you can probably work around that. Right. But make sure, because you're using Blackboard every day, make sure you have that functionality. We have a lot of patience and a lot of empathy right now, but it goes away, kind of like my hair did over the course of the semester. So if we come up toward the end and things don't work out, we won't be near as understanding as we are right now. So make sure that you got what you need, and that you can get your work uploaded and get it completed, because as the semester goes, it gets more and more intense. We get, the deadlines start looming. I'll just go ahead and tell you now, your first deadline for turning in for Taskstream, at the end of the semester is we want to see all work in no more than 2 weeks before the end of the semester, so that knocks 2 weeks off. So they've got you paced in about that time, and it'll start getting really hectic toward the end. And then you've got to go in and put your competencies in your competency folio and Taskstream as well. So make sure that if we've got issues technology-wise, we get those cleared up now, not later on when we're, you know, when we're busy and the pressure's on.
Okay.
All right, Dr. Hamilton, you're going to talk to him about APA 7th edition?
Yes, sir, I would love to. You want to share my PowerPoint, or do you want to let me have control to share?
I'll let you. I'll make you the host.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Let's see. Thank you for being here. We're glad to see you this evening. And we're going to talk just a little about APA 7th edition. So this is relatively new for all of us, and probably when you got your original master's, you probably used 6th edition, so this is just a little different. So here is a link, and this should be in your Blackboard shell under week number 1. So here's a link that will take you directly to the Dover Library, and that on the Dover Library page, it does have information there for you that helps you with APA 7th edition. So you can go there and look at that. Remember that next week you will have 2 sessions that you choose one of the 2, either Tuesday the 19th at 6 o'clock before your Tuesday evening class, or Thursday the 21st at 6 o'clock before your 7 o'clock coaching session. So you only need to do one of those 2 sessions, but those 2 sessions are there for you.
Dr. Hamilton, remind them that they have to use that passcode to get into those sessions.
Okay, so there are the passcodes, and okay, thanks for that, Dr. Stedman. So here are just 2 links to library guides that will help you with APA 7th edition, and this one's from the Garden Web website. And this is just a great resource for you. You'll notice formatting information. There's the APA, there's some snips from the APA 7th edition manual. You might want to consider getting that reference manual, since this will be something that you'll be using for your entire program. This has information about font guidelines, and we'll talk about fonts in just a minute, line spacing, things of that nature, how to cite journals, magazines, newspaper articles, things like that, how to cite in text citations, quotations, long quotations, multiple authors, and we'll talk about that in just a little more in just a minute. And then here's just another resource with very similar resources for you there, and you will see that there's a list over here on the left that you can just choose from all different things depending on what it is that you need that will help you when you are writing your papers and referencing these things. So, oh, wrong click, sorry. Abbreviations and acronyms. Abbreviations need to be used at least 3 times within your paper if you're going to use an abbreviation. So unless you use something 3 times, then don't abbreviate it. Just spell it out. So the name of my school is Parsley Elementary School. So if I was just going to use the name of my school 2 times, I would just write it out 2 times. If I was going to use it multiple times in my paper, like in my school profile, for instance, before you begin task 1 of your AAPSL, I would put Parsley Elementary School and then in parentheses put PES, and then each time that I use that throughout my paper thereafter, I would just put PES, because that reference is there that I can go back to. Headings and capitalization, you're going to always follow your template, whether it's your AAPSL template or your AAPTEL template. You're going to always follow that template. And on your headings, and you'll see it in the template, the first word's going to be capitalized, and then the subsequent words are lowercase. So the very first in task 1, prompt 1 of your AAPSL, the first thing you'll see is PLC research. So you'll have PLC, which is, of course, is an acronym. And then the next word, research, will be lowercase, and that's already there for you. And so you'll leave it just like it is in the template. Proper names are capitalized in APA 7th, but I will tell you most other things are not that you might be accustomed to capitalizing. So when you're capitalizing, err on the side of lowercase letters. That has been very hard for me to get used to. Here's something else that's been a little difficult for me to get used to, and that is they is now a singular pronoun in APA 7th edition. So you can now use they as a singular pronoun. Figures, now any of the charts, tables, anything that you put in your evidence artifacts are going to be labeled as figures. And so when you have a figure, the figure at the top is going to be labeled as like figure 1, figure 2, figure whatever, and they go in sequential order throughout your paper, and that will be bold. So like figure 1 will be bold, figure 2 will be bold. The numbers are assigned based on the order in which they appear in the text. So that's going to be bold and left justified. And then right beneath there, double space beneath there, you'll have a figure title. And the figure title will not be bold, but that will be italicized. And your title should be brief and clear and should just tell a little about what it's going to, what it's about. So you see here, this is figure 1, it's left justified, it's bold, and then you would have a title that is not bold, that's double spaced underneath figure 1, and that is going to be in italics. And then you'll have your figure, and then you'll have a little explanation underneath your figure as to what we're seeing in that figure. And everything that you put in your papers, charts, tables, whatever, you're going to label those as figures. In APA 7th edition, you're going to write in first person. So you're going to refer to yourself as I. Now, please don't confuse this with a personal narrative. So, for instance, in your AAPSL Task 1, the very first thing you're going to do is research on a PLC. What is a PLC? What makes up a good PLC? And one of your references has to be DeFore. So what we're going to be reading about is about what you have synthesized, like as a little lit review, with at least 3 references about PLCs. Now, so we will not be reading about PLCs in your school in this section because that's not in the research. So you're just going to be talking about what's in the research, and you might say, something that's in first person, you're going to write it in first person, but that's not the same as a personal narrative. So we should not be reading anything about PLCs in your school or anything like that. Also in APA 7th edition, you are going to be writing in an active voice, unlike the passive voice you would have used in 6th edition. So for a voice to be active voice, the subject has to be doing the action. When the subject comes after the verb, that often makes it passive. So the subject needs to be doing the action. Also be mindful of plural versus singular words. The singular words are on the left side of this column. Their plural words are on the right side. So data, this is a big misunderstanding, data are plural. That's hard. You have an appendix A, but when you have appendices, you have A, B, C, D, you have appendices. So those are some words that you can reference back to. This is all in your week 1 in your shell. Also some basic things, and we looked at this in the library. This is from the library page about using quotes. Make sure that when you use a direct quote from a research article, that you are putting that in quotations, and then you are using the correct in-text citation to accompany that quote. When we at the end of each of your evidence artifacts, we'll turn it into Turnitin check, and Turnitin check attaches that back to anything from any research anywhere. So it comes back to us, and if you have something in there that's not a direct quote, we'll know that then. So go ahead, make your direct quotes if they're a direct quote. I would encourage you to synthesize the information as much as possible, because it certainly makes it for better reading when it's in your own words that you've synthesized instead of having a lot of direct quotes. But please make sure that everything is referenced appropriately. Long quotes, remember, they have to be in block format, and you can go to the library page or to your APA manual to see how to do that. References for your in-text citations will come at the end of each section. You're going to merge those at the end of your evidence artifacts, and remember that your reference section at the end is always in alphabetical order. And then appendices are at the very end of your submission, and they are listed in sequential order. This is the formatting of the reference list. This is a link for you that you can use, again, that will help you see how to format reference list. So this is like basic rules for most of the sources. It tells you the difference between APA 6 and then the current. This is a big difference right here. The number of authors that this is a new rule. APA 6 required only the first 6 authors, so you will want to read that, especially when you have multiple authors, and that's another way in which you can use your APA manual to help. So your references have to be, of course, in those APA formatting rules, and you also need, to understand how to create hanging indents. Now you're going to need these to know how to do a hanging indent, not only for your reference section, but also for your annotated bibliography. Well, not working for me.
Dr. Hamilton, did you not say that this is found under week 1 in Blackboard for the students, this PowerPoint?
Yes, it is.
They have that already in their Blackboard shells. Okay. That question.
They do.
Okay, I thought so.
That should be under week 1 in their Blackboard shells. It should. And I don't know why I can't get this to play for me, but I'm struggling. Let me see if I can get there like this.
Dr. Hamilton, while you're getting there, just a reminder, one of the biggest problems we have is with the in-text citations. And many of you will use programs that are out there and thinking that it's doing it correctly for you, but that's where we have to send work back most of the time at the beginning, is because there's problems with your in-text citations with APA 7. So please make sure you look carefully at your in-text citations when you're doing your work.
Correct. Now this is on the Dover Library page, and this is how to create a hanging indent. So you have to do hanging indents in your reference section, and you will also do those in task 3 with your annotated bibliography. So the video's there, but we're going to watch it. It's only 40 seconds.
This video will show you how to create a hanging indent for a citation in Microsoft Word. Begin by highlighting your citation. In the paragraph section of the Microsoft Word toolbar, click the expander icon to pop up the full paragraph editing box. In the second section, click the drop-down menu under the special heading. Choose Hanging and click OK. Now your citation has a hanging indent.
And simple as that, then your citation has a hanging indent. You can watch that. I watched it a couple of times. I thought that was the coolest thing. So there you go. So that's how you'll do your hanging indents. You're going to need those for your references and for your annotated bibliographies. So what's the difference between a reference and an in-text citation? Well, your in-text citation is going to be in the body of your paper. It's going to be in your text. The reference is going to be the reference section at the end of your work. So as you see over here, the reference list entry. So this is a reference, and you notice the hanging indent. Now, this is called a parenthetical citation, in-text citation. So if you summarized something that Alexander had said from his work, then you would just write what you were going to write, and you would just put this parenthetical citation at the end, Alexander, comma, 2018. And that just means it's all inside the parentheses. But a narrative citation, if you said Alexander said blah, 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 then you would say Alexander, and then just the only thing in the parentheses would be 2018. But whatever you have in your in-text citations has to match and align with your reference at the end of your reference section at the end of your paper, and whatever you have in your reference section has to match and align with your in-text citation. So always make sure that you have those aligned. Now, in APA 7th, if you have 1 to 2 authors, there's no change. So here's another parenthetical citation, Earl, comma, 2013, all inside the parentheses. That's 1 author, perfect. Here's an example of 2 authors, perfect. Now please note that if it is a parenthetical citation and you have 2 authors, you're going to use an ampersand inside the parentheses. If you had these 2 authors' names and you had used them as the narrative citation, then you would put first name, the word AND, second name, then your parentheses with the date. Now here's the difference in APA 7. If you have 3 or more authors, you're going to list the first author's name and then put et al. For each in-text citation. So in this situation, we don't know how many authors were on this work, but we know that it was 3 or more. So in this situation, they wrote Black et al. 2010. So the moral to that story is, if you write a paper, make sure you are listed first as the author. So here's an example, in-text citation. So if you had 4 authors, you would not list all 4 authors like that. You would just put Taylor et al. 2018. Spacing, this was very hard for me. In APA 6, you put 2 spaces after a punctuation. In APA 7, you will only put 1 space following a punctuation. So make sure you only put 1 space after punctuation. Now, back to font and size. APA 7th does give us options for font and size. However, Gardner-Webb University's Education Department requests Times New Roman 12 point. And then numbers 0 through 9 are written in word form. 10 and above can be in Arabic form. Never begin or end a sentence using numerals. So what's going to happen is you're going to be giving us your school profile, and you're going to say 70% of our students, and you're going to start the sentence with a 7 and a 0 and a percent sign. That needs to be written out, 70, S-E-V-E-N-T-Y. So never begin or end a sentence using numerals, and numbers 0 through 9 are written in word form. And just one more little thing is, before you turn in your work, just look at it. If you have a little red squiggly line or a little blue squiggly line under some of your work, that means something's probably not right there. So just go back and look at it. That's just a really quick way to review your work. So thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton.
Dr. Lamb, just a reminder, some of the students said they didn't have that. I didn't realize that it was not there. Dr. Hamilton sent it, and it's not in my classes, but it'll be in there in just a few minutes.
It's under your APA materials in her shell, and if it's not in yours, I'll put it in there in just a minute.
Okay, and if it's under that, and we had told them it's under week 1, so it's in a different place then.
APA format materials.
Okay, APA.
And if it's not, it'll be there just in a minute.
Okay.
All right, so right here, I pulled up Dr. Hamilton's shell where it says APA format materials. It's the last document here. I don't know. I haven't checked the other two. I'll check them right quick while I'm here.
I'm sure it's under there. I was looking under week 1. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's not in my shell either, Dr. Lamb.
No, I'll put it there just in a minute as we move on through our agenda. Let's move on.
Perfect.
I'll put them there. We'll do that. All right. So next on our list is me, I guess. Introduction to the 5 tasks of the AAPSL. Show everybody to find everything. Mel's handbook. All right. So the template, those kinds of things. Dr. Stebbin, I'm going to turn that over to you and let you talk about those. Can you do that?
Okay.
If I pull up your,
yeah, pull up mine. Yes.
I'll pull up your shell and let you walk through that right quick.
Okay.
All right, let me
And we've already
minimize
done it,
this.
so it's just going to be a quick overview of it. That's all it's going to be, because we talked about it on Tuesday night already, but I just want
Right.
to review it again.
Okay, so here's your shell.
Okay. 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 You've got to share it with me, don't you? I mean, give it back for me to open it up.
Okay, I can share
Oh,
where you can do that.
Okay. You're
All right, I'm gonna make you the host, and you can.
Okay.
All right, let's see. You should be. Let me stop my share. See if you can share screen now. There you go.
Okay. I'm going to have to pull it up though. Let's not waste time.
Well, then I will.
Dr. Crawford, can you talk about the school profile while I'm pulling this up? Okay.
What'd you say?
Would you go ahead and?
You want to do your part now, and then Danny will pull up his shell. Dr. Stebbin pull his up in a minute. Go ahead. We'll skip to you. Let him get his shell up.
School profile? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So good evening, ladies and gents. One of the first things you're going to dive into with the AAPSL task 1 is the school profile. And the simplest way to describe that is you're basically going to be telling a story about your school. So in that story, and I'll pull up a form one I have here just a second. So yes, in your school profile, you're going to give the basic demographics of your school. So, you know, school has X number of students, K-5 or 6-8 or 9-12. It's located in X city within X county. You can even give the, you can go on to Power School or any public sites and get kind of the breakdown of the school by demographics. But your school profile is also the opportunity to really tell your school's story. So for example, I cannot share. So for example, I had a student last semester, and I forget the name of the school. It's School Down East in Tarboro. One of the things that this student put in their school profile is that the school, the high school, is actually the high school of a former North Carolina governor and 3 Major League Baseball players. In your school profile, you could add things that are significant to the community. How does the school fit into the community? Was it had like 3 of these last semester, had 3 schools that used to be racially segregated. Now we're in the South, so that's not necessarily uncommon, but that's part of that school's story. And so in many cases, ladies and gentlemen, that's not information that you should have to necessarily dig for. Many schools already have these profiles available. If nothing else, enough to give you a start. And then you could do some additional research to add those other things that are, again, significant to and about your school, so that you're going to give a fairly comprehensive picture about not only your school, but how your school fits into the community at large. So, one of the things I would add for my current school, because I think it's significant, is its age. My school opened in 1964. Lyndon Johnson was president. I once found a book in the library. I swear to God, I found a book in the library, a book on the presidents, copyright 1959. It stopped at Eisenhower. You can't make this stuff up. And so the larger context that there is that Guilford County is an aging school system. And as a matter of fact, the superintendent, we attempted to go for broke. She asked for $1.9 billion with a B bond referendum. The county commissioners only gave us 300 million, so we're going to do that as kind of a first installment. That's the kind of thing that I would add in my school's profile because those are significant to the school and then to the community. And so it's a good time for you to start rooting around for that information. Like I said, I'd share with you the one that I have up, but I can't share. But that's what you're looking for when you are putting together your school profile.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Crawford. I would suggest, and you're going to need it next semester anyway. I'm going to require it the very first week that you're in 603 with me. Where you need to start is with your principal with your latest accreditation report. Either Advanced Ed, which is now called Cognia, or SACS, because the very first section in that accreditation report has your school profile. It has your average income, the history of the school, it has parents' average education. It puts your school in context. And then, as Dr. Crawford said, any of those little things along the way, that his school was built in '64, and he found a book from the Eisenhower administration. Now, Dr. Stedman and I are both kind of partial to that administration since we were alive during that time. But that's significant in that, you might see a book in the library on science that says, hopefully someday man will go to the moon, as I discovered in one of the buildings where I was principal one time. Of course, we know that happened in '69. So that would be significant, that your school used to be this, or it was built, after consolidation from several communities that never really get along, or it's a school like in Charlotte that might be a midpoint school that takes all the non-magnet students from the area that, gets everybody that can't read and write. Those kinds of things are important, those little tidbits. But I would start with that first chapter in my school's accreditation report, and it will have much of that, those facts and figures, dollar numbers. You will find it in your accreditation report, and you're going to need that next semester as well. When we start with the OMA, you're going to need that also. So if you go ahead and write it now, you will have it. Back to Dr. Stedman.
Okay, and again, in Blackboard, and I'm sure Dr. Hamilton pointed this out on Tuesday night as well, these are important sections in your Blackboard course shell. The AAPSL task and prompts and the AAPSL template and materials. You will use these extensively as you're doing your evidence work. Quickly, I want to just pull the AAPSL task and prompts up because I need to point out one thing with the AAPSL scoring rubric, and you need to be aware that this information is in there. You ask, we're constantly saying, or when we send the work, you should always strive for your work to be accomplished. Accomplished is the best word that you possibly can submit to us. But when it leaves our hands, when it leaves Dr. Revis and Dr. Hamilton and me, when we're grading your work, and Dr. Crawford, it goes into the hands of an evaluator. Now, if it's anything less than proficient, that means that that you have not done what you need to do and we cannot move you on. The minimum is proficiency. This is what you should always strive for. So in the AAPSL Task 1 that we're going to talk about in just a little bit, this is what you would need to do to get accomplished. Research on PLCs must include a minimum of 3 sources and be written in APA format. And notice the word "and." It doesn't stop there. You've got to do that, and you've got the candidate documents PLC members and their roles, strengths, and other significant details. It doesn't stop there. Notice the connecting word "and." The candidate leads the PLC in a meeting to discuss the vision and purpose of the PLC. And notice it doesn't stop there. There's one more "and." The candidate used basic technologies to communicate with other members of the PLC. Now, when your evaluator looks at that, now when we grade your work, we're going to try our best to grade it to the point that we guide you to accomplish work. But at a minimum, we're going to move you on and your work has to be proficient. When it goes to the evaluators, they're going to look at they have a rubric that they follow and a guideline. And if any one of these is missing, automatically it reverts back to proficiency. So it's your responsibility to make sure that you have connected all the dots and all of the "ands" are included in your work. Dr. Lamb, anything else that you want to say about that?
The one thing that I see most commonly under the candidate documents, PLC members and their roles, strengths, and other significant details, you need to tell why you picked these people, give a little background to who they are, and there should be a better reason than their room is closest to mine for putting them on the PLC, or they're my friend, or they were the only person that said they would do this. You need to have the qualifications of your PLC members. Your evaluator will be looking most specifically at that. And that's the one thing that we get the most people knocked down on in terms of moving from accomplished over to proficiency is you just list who they are like we know them. Your evaluator doesn't know them. You need to give a little background, how many years they've been in the business, what they teach, what their interests are, or why specifically they make a good fit for your PLC. So that one I see most commonly when students complain about the grades that they get.
I think the rest of it we've covered it, so I don't need to say anything else about that. Let's go on to Dr. Hamilton. What is the purpose of the AAPSL? Do I need to stop share, Dr. Hamilton? We can't hear you.
It would help if I would unmute. No, I'm not going to share anything. I'm just going to make this really, really brief.
Okay.
The purpose of the AAPSL is, first of all, to learn how, through your research, to create and lead an effective PLC. And you'll be doing this through your whole program. And you want that PLC to be, of course, based on the research of effective PLCs. You're going to conduct a comprehensive analysis of best practices in teaching and learning that you're going to use to address a need, a most pressing need that you're going to identify from your school. And then you're going to develop, present, and implement an action plan that's going to guide your school towards school improvement. And so this is to help develop your leadership in knowing how to create an effective PLC, to develop your leadership in determining how to identify a need, how to identify best practices in education, and then how to create and implement an action plan that will guide school leadership in school improvement.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hamilton. And Dr. Revis is going to talk again about what is the PLC, or the professional learning community. And some of this information may overlap, but that's okay. Do you need to?
Good evening.
Do I need to stop share, Dr. Revis, or do you need anything?
No,
Okay.
no, I'm not. I'm just going to talk very briefly.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I really think the term PLC is a very overused term that we use to describe any time educators get together. But for this program, we are using the default model, and that is when educators come together to focus on learning for all students. Now, when you talk about, excuse me, learning for all students, what that needs to bring to your mind is student performance data. This PLC that you are going to do here in the AAPSL is about student performance data. It's not about discipline. It's not about attendance. And unfortunately, it is not about student engagement in a virtual environment, which I know we're all very interested in right now. You are going to examine student performance data, the latest data that you have. And not only are you going to examine data, but DeFore says we build that collaboration among our team members and that we focus on results. Results being three main questions. What do we want students to learn? How are we going to know when they learn it? And what are we going to do if they experience difficulty? So that's a broad picture of the PLCs. We're going to talk Tuesday evening in more detail about the PLC and setting norms, etc. Now, many of you may be operating under this model in your school, and if you are, that's great. But if you're not, we're going to ask that you organize and lead your PLC with this model during this program.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Revis. And I sent this to Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Revis, or all the staff. And if they haven't, they will place this under week 1 for your reference. This is what I'm going to conclude with on my part. And it's just taking everything that we've talked about and putting it in as succinctly as I know how to help you get started effectively this week. Now, somebody asked the question, is task 1 due this week? No, but you can't wait until next week to get started on it. So there's things that you can do. All of this can be found in Blackboard. How to begin task 1 of the AAPSL. Simply use the AAPSL template found in Blackboard under AAPSL template and materials. That's where you begin. Follow the template. It's your roadmap. You fill in the blanks. Number 2, review the AAPSL example found in Blackboard under AAPSL template and materials. And I'm sure Dr. Hamilton said the same thing. It may not be the best example in the world, but it's a good example to follow. It shows you what you should be doing, and just it will guide the process for you. Then you will find the AAPSL helpful hints document that will basically take all of this material and it'll break it down into layman's terms to help you break it down and better understand what you're doing step by step. I would copy those documents and I would have them laid out beside me when I'm doing my work. Now, if you haven't, then this week, before you leave school tomorrow, you need to have this dialogue, or you need to communicate with your principal site supervisor concerning the requirements to lead a PLC this semester. You need to be able to explain to them what you're going to be doing. Let them know you will be asking teachers and staff and possibly administration to be a part of the PLC. You will need to put this request in writing or in an email, even though you may speak directly to your supervisor, simply because you're going to need an affirmative response from them, and the email that you send and the response back will serve as artifacts that you will use as you complete evidence 1. As Dr. Crawford has said, complete your school profile. This is the story of your school. And then task 1 begins. And just as simply as we know how to say it, complete your PLC research with a minimum of 3 sources, and one of them must be a reference from Richard DeFore. What is a PLC? What does a good PLC look like? How is a good PLC conducted? What are the norms, etc.? This is all according to what the research says, not what you think, not what you say. This is what the research says. And a lot of materials are in your Blackboard shell that will help you with this. You need to open them up, read them, and use the resources that we've provided you with. Then next, select who will serve on your PLC, 4 to 5 members. Why did you choose them? What are their strengths? What do they bring to the table? What are their educational credentials, etc.? Then you conduct your first PLC meeting and you lead the PLC to discuss the vision and purpose of the PLC. You establish your norms at this meeting. There are excellent materials again in Blackboard to assist with these. Then when you put all that together, when you submit task 1 for our review, for peer and instructor review, you will have a reference section that Dr. Hamilton has talked about, APA 7th edition, and then you will have an appendices, and at a minimum, your email to conduct the PLC with an affirmative response should be there. A meeting agenda and minutes of the meeting should be there, a sign-in roster, etc. You can also include a picture of yourself presenting as an artifact. This is what you have to do with task 1. You can go ahead and get started on that this week. We will talk more about it on Tuesday, but we will introduce task 1, or we will revisit this again. But guess what we're also going to do on Tuesday? We already begin talking about task 2 of evidence 1. So you've got to get started and build the momentum, because once you get started, we're always reviewing a task and you're starting a new task at the same time. So we're beginning that momentum as we speak. Okay, that is, did I miss anything, Dr. Lamb, in what I was telling them?
No, I've got 3 points that I want to make as we close, though, whenever we're ready to do that.
Okay, I'm through. So
All right,
I will stop sharing. Okay.
Stop sharing and we'll go back to the end. So here are my 3 final points for the evening. I'm going to reiterate what Dr. Revis said. This is about teaching and learning at your school. It's not about discipline. It's not about attendance. It's not about, we want you to look at your standardized test scores. And that would be the ones that are on your state report card. Not some test that your school gives, you know. We want the things that become public about your school, that are markers or indicators of the success or otherwise of your school. We want to work on improving academic performance in your school. Do not pick something like, well, if kids attend better, they score better. That's not true. If they attend better, they just show up more. If you want kids to learn more, you have to teach them more. And then I have people, well, if kids behave better, they'll learn more. Nope, that's not true either. If you teach them more, they'll learn more. And so make sure that your PLC is centered around your standardized test scores. Now, I'm going to get a question from one of you at least, probably before the night is over. What my principal says that because we already do PLCs, that he doesn't want me to, or she doesn't want me to form another PLC. Okay, then. Just leave the one that you got. We prefer that you create your own PLC, because it's going to be focused on just this one little narrow area. But if your principal says no when you ask them, then leave the one that you've got. That's not ideal, but my hair wasn't supposed to fall out either. So sometimes you just have to suck it up, buttercup, and deal with what you got. So make sure you understand that. All right. The big thing is lead your PLC. And then the last thing is, Mike made a good point. The work that you do on this, the work that you do at your school, whether you're leading the PLC or talking, the work counts towards your clinical hours as well. The only thing that you can't count is the time you sit and spend writing. But the work that you do at your school in this vein of leading the PLC, putting it together, doing your meeting on your norms and roles and responsibilities, all of that can count toward your clinical hours. Remember, you've got to have 80 of those this semester. That works out to 1 per day.
And Dr. Lamb, we are very aware that many of you are not in your schools, and if everything is virtual, or if it's asynchronous and part of them are in school, however, whatever you're doing, if you have to do your PLCs virtually, then that's okay. We work with what you're having to work with at this point.
Okay, and to that end, the last document for the evening is, I have put this Dr. Hamilton's 7th edition PowerPoint presentation. It's under in everybody's class shell now. This is Dr. Stedman's. It's under APA format materials. I have just uploaded it under all of them, so you will find it there. But under handbooks, competency folio resources, you will see a clinical internship handbook. When you open that up, again, if you are virtual, if you're not in your building and you want to know how you can get your hours, you can thank Dr. Hamilton and her group. They put together a nice little list of suggested activities. This is my list for if you're in school, and this is her list if you're out of school of ways to get your hours. And Mike made a good point on chat a minute ago. Yes, the working on these activities for your evidence, working on them, not writing them, but working on them, get you hours as well. So between these activities that you can do while your school is in session, and these when it's not in session, and doing these activities, even if it's online for your PLC, you should have no problem getting your hours this semester. It'll be the same way when we do the AAPSL the second half of the semester.
And you ask your principal, you ask your site supervisor, you know, what can I do to assist with, if you're doing virtual, what can I do to assist with this process? And you know, and I promise you, they'll give you some work to do. So
open up this handbook and look at all these activities that you can do to get hours. I would share this. Your CC1, when they meet with your principal and you virtually in the next week or so, they're going to share this and alert. Your principal gets a handbook as well. And it says Site Supervisor Handbook. It has this list in it as well as possible things possibly that they could say, hey, you could do this, or how about doing that? So you shouldn't have any problems getting your hours in if you know what the activities that count are, and your principal that supervises you knows. And that's part of that CC1 meeting that you're going to have. They're going to make sure your principal knows. They're going to meet with you, and this is one of the most important things that they're going to cover. How do you go about getting your hours? And so your principal will be aware.
And Dr. Lamb,
they have already emailed that to your principal, that handbook.
Yeah, and at the end, you've listed the competencies. So the 21 competencies that you'll hear us talk about all the time, he has actually shown you how you can meet those competencies during this semester as well.
Exactly. Read this handbook. You know, when you send an email to get permission to form your PLC, you'll have met these 5 competencies. Number 1 being communication. Number 2, down the list, and here's the list of competencies right here behind it. So 1, 2 is change management. So I have gone ahead and crosswalked these for you, so you'll know what competencies you met by doing these activities as well. And when you do open-ended activities, I've crosswalked those as well for you, so you'll know what competencies you met, so that later on when we get to the competency folio, it's already there.
And we will spend a full Thursday night on the competency folio, so you don't have to understand all of that yet. We're just showing you that it's there, and we're going to come back and revisit the competency folio in just a few weeks.
And here is a simple log. You can create your own of what date, what activity you did for your clinical hours, what competency it fell under, what proof you have. If you generated an agenda, that would be a proof, and how much time you spent. Now the proof column is for you, and I would put a little note in there where I hid that, because sometimes when you sleep you forget. I do. And so you may need that proof later on, like that agenda or those minutes. You can upload those as artifacts later on. And so make you a little log. You can use this one. You can make your own. But you need to, at the end of the semester, you're going to have to present a log to your principal for their signature that says you did 80 hours each semester you're in the program. Now, that's for your protection as well. One of the things that we find is people move. Either you move or your principal moves. That way, your new principal coming in or your new school where you are, we don't have to worry about them at the end signing off on all of your hours. They only have to sign off on the ones that they were there for. So we do it every semester. We sign off on these on the 80 hours. And that protects us in case there's movement and you don't have the same site supervisor for whatever reason at the end of the program as you started out with. And that's rather common.
Okay.
So you'll have to get this signed at the end of this semester. So you need to go ahead and get that you have to log those hours and you have to keep a running record. Now, this is not a Gardner-Webb requirement. This is a state, North and South Carolina State Department requirements for the number of clinical hours for them to give you a license. So if you neglect this part, not only will we give you a 0, they won't give you a license. So you gotta log these hours. It wouldn't matter if you're with us or any other college. You have to log these hours. This is a Department of Public Instruction requirement.
Okay.
You got to have
Philip,
320 hours during your program.
Philip asked the question, can this log be handwritten? Philip, we highly recommend that you don't do that. First of all, this is going to DPI. It's going to represent you. This should have a professional look when it is submitted for your licensure. So we highly recommend that you put it into a format where you can go in and you can just log it in on your computer, and then you can have a document that way. But you know, we have accepted them, but they don't look nearly as professional when you go that route.
These are all going to be uploaded in your DRF portfolio that will be sent to the state at the end. It's being evaluated as it goes so that we'll know, but it'll go for one last evaluation check at the end. And that log will be evaluated. Your log will be evaluated at the end. They will look, we'll look and see the activities to make sure that you didn't do 3 times 8's 24, 240 hours of bus duty. If you got 240 hours of bus duty, you will not pass. You know, let me speak to that too, because I always get a question. You notice that we have activities separated into 3 different headings here: leadership opportunities, supervision, and technical. You notice the length of each one. That should be the appropriate ratio of the hours that you get. So in a 240-hour clinical hour program, 80 per semester, 3 semesters, we would expect to see 120 hours of leadership, at least half. We would expect to see, you know, of the other 120 hours, 80 of them be technology, and only no more than about 40 hours of supervision. So even if you do bus duty every day and you put it on there, that's fine. But you should have no more than 40 hours, the whole entire length of your program of bus duty supervision, counting toward your internship hours. That will not fly. They will not certify you to administrator if all you've done is bus duty. Because, I mean, in order to do bus duty, all you got to learn to do is buy a coat long enough to cover you behind, and you're golden on bus duty. So, I mean, there's not a lot of learning there that takes place. Of course, if you're in the eastern part of the state, it's not as important as if you're in the west to have a long coat, but that's pretty much all you got to learn about bus duty, and don't get run over. So, you know, we need for you to do leadership activities. That's the idea here. So be logging your hours, make sure that you do the right kinds of things that lead you to learning things that will help you to get a job and become a quality administrator. Supervision's important, but certainly it doesn't take that long to figure it out. I would explore as many of those leadership opportunities as my principal would let me. You know, it gets you noticed, it gets you out there, you get in the mix. I mean, you know, I'm guessing that all of you got in this program to get a job, that you're not just doing this for the good of the group, that you would like to get a job. Well, getting that job started this past Tuesday night, or this past Monday night. This is about getting a job. Our folks get jobs really, really easily and really well. And we want to continue that trend. You know, our folks on the standards that principals and assistant principals are graded on, grade out in the highest 2 categories, significantly above the state average in all 5 of those standards. There's the reason why. There's a reason why we're the #1 ranked administrative program in North or South Carolina. There's a reason why, because of the quality of the students that we put out, because we ask you to be real interns, to do real learning. This is not about putting checks in the box. This is about learning things and putting yourself out there and getting past your comfort level and being a leader. And you can do that. You do yourself more good through your clinical hours and the things that you do there than anything that we can do for you. So I'm stressing, get out there, do these activities, be a volunteer, take a hand, lend a hand, and it will stand you in good stead. You will do well, and you know, we'll be there to support you. I write letters every day. I do online reference forms every day. We'll be there to support you. And if you have troubles, we have somebody that can come to your building. If you have issues, we have coaches to help you with those. We want you to succeed. 95% of the people who make it past drop ad this semester complete this program on time and get their license. Let me say that again. 95% complete on time and get their license. Every now and then we'll have a student that something comes up, they have to take a semester off. We just had one today. We've got a COVID case, and he's going to have to, his wife, he's going to have to take a semester off. But other than that, our folks can finish on time. They get their license, they get jobs, and there's a reason why. So make this program work for you. You're spending a lot of time and money. Make it pay off for you. All right, my rant is over. What else have we got to do tonight?
That is it. We've covered a lot.
We have, but it's been a good week so far. I pray for your health and the health of all your family members. I know it's a difficult time. I know work situations are difficult. I was on interviews today for folks coming into the School of Ed from the teacher assistants to teachers program, and that are teacher assistants and across the state. And I know it's not good. I know things are difficult for everybody right now, but I'll tell you, I hate to say this, but it's a really good time for our folks, because our folks get so well trained in platforms and technology and doing these kinds of things. Our folks are in high demand right now. So, you know, that is the silver lining to this cloud. All right, so class again next Tuesday, 7 o'clock with these folks. I have a doctoral class on Tuesday night, so I can't join you on then, but I'll be back with you next Thursday.
Right. And everybody has enough that they know how to get started on task 1. So I think you're good to go. Contact us if you need us. Thank you.